Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I appreciate you joining me today. The topic today is hopefully going to be a little bit of a shorter video, but we are going to address how to introduce yourself and answer the scariest interview question of them all. Tell me about yourself. We're going to run through how to make that first impression, how to respond to that, how to keep it concise, and ultimately set you up for success here and take control of the interview. So, without further ado, let's dive in. All right, so the first thing I'm going to say here is whether you like this or not, your true first impression is going to come from your appearance. And so you need to dress as professionally as you can. I'm not going to sit here and say that, men need to wear a full-blown, 3-4-piece suit and women need to wear a pantsuit and this and that, but dress to the formality that you are able to. You only have one shot at a first impression, and this is going to back up the introduction and the statement that you are going to make. And so what's the harm or the risk in dressing up one time for the interview, right? Like, it's not like because you dressed up in the interview, it's expected that you're going to wear that every single day. So please just know, I recommend dressing to what you can. Second thing that I'm going to say here before we dive into the specific tactics is going to be practice. And the way that I recommend to practice this is actually in the mirror. I know it's a little bit cheesy, but talking to yourself in the mirror about the introduction, you are probably going to be your harshest critic. And if you don't like the way that you're introducing yourself or the words that you're saying or the body language you're putting off, how do you expect anyone else to? So it's very similar to one of my biggest pieces of feedback for how to practice interviewing, which is do it in the mirror to yourself. But I genuinely recommend this, and especially having that intro. Again, you only have one shot at that first impression. And so while you're making a first impression with your appearance and your dress, really your first impression is your first response. And that first response is going to be your answer to the first question, which is going to be, tell me about yourself. Why are you here? Why are you applying to this position? So on and so forth, whatever it might be. Okay. Now let's actually dive in now that we have generic stuff out of the way. So the first thing that you want to do when answering this question is you want to be prepared to have your response tailored to the job description and the company specifically. So as you know, a big advocate of looking at a company's social media, LinkedIn profile, their LinkedIn posts, things like that. If there's things that catch your interest when doing your research on them, include that in your intro, right? The thing is we don't want your intro to be a formula of this and then this and then this and then this. We want it to be an organic weaving of a bunch of information. And the first framing of that is all of your responses should be tailored to them. Okay? Now, how we actually kick things off, and this is the big thing that I'm going to deviate from everybody else, is you actually don't respond immediately with an answer. You respond with a question. Tell me about yourself. Why are you here? What do you want to know? So on and so forth. Whatever the framing of the question is, your response, in my opinion, should be, do you want to know personal or professional? We're doing a couple different things here. The first thing we're doing by responding to tell me about yourself with, do you want to know personal or professional, is you're taking control of the interview. You're letting them know this will be a two-way street. I'm going to question you just as you're going to question me. You're also scoping in. Do they want to know only about your professional, or do they only want to know about your personal, or do they want a combination of both to knock them out real quick? And lastly, if somebody responds, I only want to know about your professional, do you really want to work with them? Do you really want to work for them? No. So this gives you the chance to automatically make it a personal professional conversation from the get-go. So that's why we're going to respond that way. And a lot of times you usually have those few seconds of nerves in the beginning. This gives you also that time to calm down, relax, and take a deep breath. So first thing we're going to do, tell me about yourself. Do you want to know personal or professional? And again, the benefits of this are giving you a couple seconds. It's going to be scoping the question, and it's going to be setting the tone from the beginning that this is a two-way street interview. I'm asking questions just as much as you're asking me. All right. So now we get into the responses. Like I said, 99% of the time, they're going to come back and say both. So we're going to start with professional to make that impact. Then we're going to go into personal. So when it comes to professional, we want to tailor to the job description. So what we want to encompass in our total picture here is from the job description, you want to pick out the top 3 to 4 skills or expectations that they are having in that job description of this role. And those are what you want to speak to. Okay. So if you are, like my background is going into IT management and directorship. So maybe you have budgeting and forecasting. You might have professional growth development of the individual contributors. You might have strategic planning and road mapping. And we'll just stick with those three, right? I said 3 to 4. So that's what you want to tailor things around, is picking those 3 or 4, and that's what we're going to tell. Now, the next is going to be your recent and relevant education or skill gains. So again, we've picked out the top 3 or 4 skills. Now we want to stick to some education, skill gains, and things like that. When I say recent, I am meaning the last 5 years. So relatively recent from a career perspective. I would only go older than that if it's something that's super ultra relevant and maybe sought after or a requirement for your industry. Like if there's a baseline certification degree or something like that, that really without it is impossible to succeed in your industry, then go ahead and mention that and how long you've had it, sustained it, if there's continuing credits in education. Now, in terms of the skill gains in education, I'm also going to say it's okay to do informal things here. If you didn't come out with the credential, but you've spent the last 6 months doing some Udemy courses, Coursera courses, anything like that, feel free to include those as long as they actually allow you to speak to a given thing and have actually impacted or augmented what you did. So don't feel like you have to have the pieces of paper. Then the last thing is we're rounding this out by the actual achievements and impact that you made with the given skills and education, right? Because that's at the end of the day, all the company cares about is what impact are you able to drive for me? Not what boxes are you able to check, but what value can you produce? Okay. So when I say that once you get into talking about your professional, that you are tailoring the intro to the job description. Again, what we're doing here is we're going to identify the top 3 or 4 skills from that job description. And we're going to talk about your most recent relevant education or skill gains in the last 5 years and the achievements that they've made. So I think earlier I said that in my line of work, we have strategic road mapping, personnel, professional road mapping, strategic, actually, yes, department road mapping as well, and budgeting and forecasting. And then, so what we can do is something along the lines of my professional background is in strategic leadership of IT departments. My last organization, I was able to actually create an 18-month roadmap for the future of the technology department because we were able to knock out our technical debt and our backlog and translate that into where we want to go next. The roadmap was always adaptable and fluid in order to meet the business needs, but we did map it out so that at least we had alignment across all departments as to what pillars of the business IT was going to impact. And what this allowed us to do was we were actually able to forecast and end up saving over $100,000 annually from a budgetary perspective because we realized the scope of technologies we need and we were able to resolve our technical debt. We were also able to expand the department in order to be able to make more impact and have a faster velocity in order to facilitate that growth of the company even more. And we had a lot of internal growth. We ended up having 4 internal promotions across my tenure there. And that was through continued education, through developing personalized roadmaps for people, and them having a clear direction of how they went from help desk to administration to engineering. And we had promotions across all tiers, right? So there's just this very simple example of I hit all of my skills from the strategic roadmap, the professional roadmaps, and the budgeting and forecasting. I gave an achievement or two and an accomplishment that forecasted that. Now, I am not one that across this, that I had a lot of formal education or skill gains. It was very organic. So that's why I didn't call that out. But if you did get a certification in that time frame, like I said, or take some classes or things like that, throw that in. But that was an off the cuff. I don't have a script here. If you haven't noticed, none of my YouTube is scripted, for better or worse. I want you to get me for me. And that's really a short, quick intro there. All right. Now, the last thing that we want to tag on to that is the type of person you are. And I don't mean here that, you're driven and you're motivated and so on. I actually want you to present the character traits behind that. because it's assumed that you're driven. It's assumed that you're adaptable. But why? Right? What is it that actually drives you to success and that you want to do, right? So are you an innovator, and why are you an innovator? You love, you're someone who loves challenge. I always say one of my common phrasings is complacency doesn't equal success. That's the type of person that I am. And on top of that, monotony is my enemy is another one. I hate standing still. And the other thing that I always commonly say as well to my leaders is hold my feet to the fire and leave them there until I tell you no, right? And the irony of that is, take, for instance, my last role where I was at a company for a little over 4.5 years. I told them to pull my feet away from the fire twice in 4.5 years. Otherwise, it was just high velocity all of the time. Let's go. So that's kind of what I'm looking for is who are you, right? Why do you drive success, and what is going to, from a company perspective, enable you to be successful from the environment? So the company side of the equation is don't put me in monotony. That will be my enemy. I despise it. Push me until I tell you I cannot be pushed. And the thing is when I tell you I cannot be pushed, it's only going to be temporary that we let off the gas to get me some freedom. And then I'm going to tell you to push again, right? It's just going to be that ebb and flow. So you want to weave that in there as well. And like I said, that can be as simple as, if we go back to the example that I gave, it would be something along the lines of, the reason that I'm going to be successful in this role is because I noticed that you have a lot of initiatives going on and you're requiring adaptability. And I'll be the first to tell you that monotony is my enemy and complacency doesn't equal success. And so when you want someone to move forward, that is my commitment and that is the root of my operation. That is what I do. And I hold my feet to the fire. I expect you to hold my feet to the fire, not let them up until it happens. And I will do the same for the team, right? So there's just an example there of what I would say for who I am and my success. Okay. And that's really what you want to do. So again, when we're talking about, when you're answering the professional side, because again, we started off with tell me about yourself, and the response being, do you want to know personal or professional? And every single time they're going to come back with, let's talk about both. So you want to tailor to the job description, identify those 3 or 4 skills and directly speak to those. You want to talk about any recent education or skill gains, whether formal or informal, recent being last 5 years. And you want to talk about 2 to 3 achievements or impacts that you actually made on the department, on the company, on the bottom line, on the top line, whatever it is. And then the type of person you are, some actual analogies and storytelling mechanisms about what drives you, not just that you're driven and dynamic and blah, 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 blah. I don't care about the keywords. I want some phrases, some quotes, some impact. Okay. And bring all this together. And when you realize that this should be organically weaved and not a sequence, that's how you keep it concise. And that's how you keep it short and to the point. So then you got to flip over to personal. And so then once you're done, you say, hey, and on the personal side, I tend to say stick to your hobbies, achievements, and your proud moments. And again, a little bit about your motivators, right? So something along lines for me, my big hobbies are get me outside. That's where I want to be, right? If I'm not working and at the computer, I want to be disconnected and as far away from tech as possible. From an achievement perspective, I'm very happy about the things I've been able to do with my family and with my financial success, and as an entrepreneur and these sorts of endeavors. And then, proud moments might be the fact that I have been able to successfully, like last year, my biggest proud moment is the fact that I, for the first time for an entire year, worked out 6 days a week, every single week, no questions asked. Right. And then my motivators are the fact that I want to look back on my life and I want to know I didn't leave anything on the field. Right. And so again, we're still kind of tailoring this to the professional a little bit to make an impact, but it is about personal. So something for me would be on the personal side, I'm very family oriented. I love my relationship with my family and the adventures that we like to have. I'm a big outdoors person. So you get me outside as long as it's not in water. Unless the water's frozen, I'm all about the snow, but get me out there like to hike, backpack, hunt, get time with the dogs, whatever it might be. And when I'm not relaxing and disconnecting and I'm not taking care of my family or working, then I'm looking at what my personal growth is going to be. Do I need to focus on my financial success? Do I need to focus on my emotional intelligence or my mental health? And moving all of those things forward, because I want to look back on my life and know that I left nothing on the field. That to me would be my biggest lifetime regret, is being able to look back on my deathbed and go, man, I could have done more. And I refuse to let that be my vision. That would be like the personal side of me. Keep it short, concise, let them know. Now, going back to the biggest thing that I said as to why we answer the question, tell me about yourself, with a question of personal, professional, is to let them know it's a two-way street. Now we're going to follow that up. And so we're going to turn the tables back after our personal explanation, and we're going to say, would you mind telling me about yourself? Or what can you tell me about your role here? Right? However you kind of want to word that, that's what we're looking for, is for you to then flip it over and not just wait for the next question, but go, hey, tell me about yourself. I want to now know about you, right? And here's the thing. This immediately creates that personal connection. And as we know, think back on your life. Whenever you have impactful strangers, because right now you guys are strangers, it's the people who you can relate to, who did something impactful that almost was a level of vulnerability and relatability. Whether this is the cashier at the grocery store, the waiter or waitress at the restaurant, or somebody you met while going on an outdoor adventure. It doesn't matter. You don't remember anybody unless you have a connection. So now immediately you're opening the tables to them, and they may do a level of repeating of what you just did about themselves. But a lot of times what you'll notice is they'll go, oh, I'm also a hiker. That's one of the things I like to do in my life. Where do you go around here? Or what's your favorite hike or adventure, and things like that. Or maybe they'll go into the professional background, and education-wise, you guys can talk about similar things that you've achieved. They'll really try to focus on the things that are relatable to you. And then now you immediately have an actual relationship and connection rooted in something like-minded from the beginning. So why all of this is a successful formula is you are conveying your impact, conveying your value, you are building a relationship, you're making it conversational, you're making it very easy, and you are really setting the tone that you are confident, that you are competent, and you are showing them that this is how you are going to interact with the business once you do get the role. Is that it's not just going to be a box checking mechanism as to who you are, but that you are going to come in, you are going to ask questions, build relationships, and drive success. That's what you're trying to convey. So, quick recap here. Tell me about yourself. Practice it. Practice your response. Practice in a mirror. 2, dress as professionally as you are able to afford and be capable of. 3, tailor your response, tailor your response. 3 is respond to tell me about yourself with, do you want to know personal or professional? 4, you're almost always going to get the response of tell me about both. So now we're going to tailor into the job description by identifying 3 or 4 skills that are key on the job description. We're going to talk about any relevant education or skill gains, both formal and informal, in the last 5 years that are relatable, and 2 to 3 impactful, measurable achievements that you've done that relate to that. You want to include some about the character traits of who you are. So not just that you are driven or that you are dynamic, but why you are and some of the philosophies that are behind the scenes of what drives you. And then for your personal, stick to hobbies, achievements, proud moments, and motivators. Lastly, round it out with a quick question. Could you tell me more about yourself? Boom. Done. End of story. Do this, and I promise you, you and the person on the other side of the table or the other side of the screen, doesn't matter. This will set the tone for such a comfortable money interview that you will make impressions like nobody's belief. I promise it. If you like this type of content, please leave a comment below. If you have any questions, you want me to talk about anything or modify anything that I said here, leave it in the comments down below as well. And if you have feedback on my content, because I am looking to get better with every single video and everything that I produce, leave that down in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, as well as we are now live on X, Facebook, Instagram as well. So follow us there, and LinkedIn. So please follow us there too. I appreciate your time. Until next time, thank you for joining me today.